And we're back with more of this week's political roundtable. This time we're going to be talking about the Gary mayoral race. The big development this week, well, the big development last week was Gary Mayor Rudy Clay suspending his campaign due to health reasons. This week he announced who he was endorsing. Wasn't much of a surprise.
No, Karen Freeman-Wilson. He pretty well hinted it wasn't going to be Reagan Hatcher, and she pretty well hinted she didn't want his endorsement in any way. So
well, I don't know if I don't know if it was less that she didn't want it. It's the more that she didn't expect it, and better than to say I'm disappointed. Yeah. You're better off to your constituency saying, I didn't expect it, didn't want it. It's not a problem.
And she preemptively put out a pretty scathing statement, didn't she, Mark, in terms of accusing Clay of using the office for politics and intimidating city employees.
Yes, well, I mean, it's boy, I'm telling you though, we were talking about politics a little bit in our previous discussion on redistricting, and that's kind of the way the game was played. And if you can deplore it all you want, but if you can't run with the big boys or the big girls or the big dogs or whatever kind of critter you got on the porch, you got to get out of the game. So, Reagan Hatcher is finding out early on. She's a freshman city councilman. Exactly what it's like to play politics, and as the late Harold Washington said, politics ain't beanbag. Now that said, she is the daughter of former Mayor Richard Hatcher, and should have had a pretty good idea going into it what she could expect.
Right.
Now, for Clay to endorse Karen Freeman-Wilson, Karen Freeman-Wilson had run against him before, but there was really no extremely bad adversarial blood between the two of them. Gary is. You want to talk about the Balkan countries and how they're all. You got 15 countries divided, and everyone's got. I mean, Gary has got just political camps everywhere,
right?
And they'll make alignments here to fight a group there, even though they're not particularly fond of each other. They're less fond. The enemy of my enemy, the enemy of your enemy is my enemy, or whatever. So, and I think that's some of what you're seeing here with the Clay. With Clay and Karen Freeman.
And not counting Rudy, well, I guess Rudy's name will still be on the ballot at this stage.
Yeah.
So that would put 10 names on the ballot on the Democratic side.
Now, is it on the early ballot, or is it going to be on the printed ballot? I had heard two different things.
Well,
I believe it might be too late to remove it from the ballot, so I think he is on the ballot.
Well, and announcing that you're withdrawing from the race is not the same as saying take my name off. So
now, are you sure? Because George Janek's name in Hammond was on the early ballot, or was not on the early ballot, but they were waiting to see what the court decision was before they put him on the ballot for mayor.
Right, and we talked to him about that this morning, in fact, and found out that there's been some foot dragging on the county's side in terms of filing the paperwork. At least that's George Janek's side. So that's what's holding up the that for process for the Hammond mayoral race.
Well, I frankly wouldn't be surprised at that, because the county election board is 3-2 Democrats. So,
right.
But when you give the county clerk the swing vote, so.
Right, but going back to the mayoral race in Gary, so far at least his name is still on the ballot, at least in theory. So so that puts it, it's really down to a two-way race. There are some candidates who really have good ideas and everything, but realistically they're just not going to have the support. So they'll have some of their friends and supporters will give them some of the votes, but really it's down to Reagan Hatcher and Karen Freeman-Wilson, and it will be interesting. Both of them have put forth documents that show their plans. So I mean, they're very serious about
Both
this.
have name recognition, so it'll be a good contest.
It should be a very interesting contest, and as you point out, Robert, they both do have name recognition, and some of it may come down to that. It may come down to the going back into the 80s and the 70s, looking at the old Hatcher regime and saying, you know, is Reagan Hatcher, you know, more of the same of her dad, or is she independent? You look at people like in Illinois, when Lisa Madigan ran for Attorney General, a lot of people said, well, you know, all she is she's just going to be a puppet for her dad, Mike Madigan, the House Speaker, and that just turned out not to be true at all.
Well, the other funny thing I'm wondering about this race is Karen Freeman-Wilson, of course, is the former Attorney General for Indiana, and so she went to school with Harvard with President Obama. So how much will being a friend of the president, you know, when this is a city that obviously needs to have its hand out to the federal government, how much will that make a difference in how the people vote?
Well, now, was she a friend? Was she? I don't know how close she was to Obama, but you know, she probably knew him. But you know, were they friends? Is this going to make any difference to Obama? Obama has shown a willingness to help out a lot of his friends. Rahm Emanuel probably being one of the
Space
biggest.
shuttle notwithstanding.
Yeah. Well, you can only give away so
Space
many
shuttle.
space shuttles.
The reference being that the Adler Planetarium lost out on getting one of the shuttles this week.
But
unfortunately.
you know, frankly, it made a lot more sense to send the shuttle where it went to the Smithsonian. But you know, you talk about how much influence she's going to have over him. He's obviously shown preference for his Chicago allies, Emanuel, Bill Daley,
Right.
the head of the schools. I can't remember.
Arnie Duncan.
And Arnie Duncan, thank you. How is that? Will that extend to Northwest Indiana, or will Northwest Indiana once again come up to be a little bit short?
Well, Northwest Indiana has to play by the rules to get the grants too, so we'll see how that works out.
We will see.